So a while back, I actually did a video about what it's like to be a true Walking Dead fan and to still be here. And I definitely feel like the ones who live is me. That's me. I've been with the show since day one. I used to have sight. I don't anymore. I've stuck with the show and all of its spin-offs. Well, most of the spin-offs. I did stop watching Fear of the Walking Dead the moment they started bringing nukes into the equation, and The World Beyond was just awful. World Beyond was no. It's like the CW version of Walking Dead. I couldn't. I got like 3 episodes into that, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Um, so, but I watched every episode of the main series. I've sat through every Dead City and Daryl Dixon, and now I'm into this show. And I'd watched every Tales of the Walking Dead as well as those little spin-offs. Remember the one where they're in the plane, the little like interstitial things. Those were cool. Anyway, so this is a review of The Ones Who Live from a blind fan of The Walking Dead, which hates me. Scott M. Gimple comes on at the end of this, if you watch this on AMC Plus, or actually probably if you watched it live, and he's like, "This is your look at The Walking Dead, the ones who live." And I was like, "Listen, fucker, why do you hate me? Like, I want an actual answer from the producers of The Walking Dead as to why they hate blind people. Like, why is it that they think that by continuing to put deaf and hard of hearing characters in their show that they somehow like stand on some sort of representation platform. None of their shows are accessible. There isn't the only one that had any audio description was Tales of the Walking Dead, which is separate from the universe. They have no overlapping characters with Tales of the Walking Dead. So the main universe has no audio description. It has like 100 fans, thousands of fans, blind fans online requesting it, but they will not add audio description to the show. The funny thing is, I've actually found out since then in my advocacy, because I put myself out there online, somebody reached out to me and said, actually, there is audio description for one of the shows. They just don't use it. So I won't reveal which one, but that just kind of goes to show AMC's value in me as a fan of The Walking Dead and how much they actually care about. But I can't stop loving the show. The Walking Dead is my favorite show of all time. It's number one. I'm a huge fan of the show, and of course I was going to finish it out. I'm glad Rick is back. I actually lost my vision a little bit before he left the show. So I didn't, yeah, there's like entire characters I've never actually seen. But I lost it even before Carl's death. So I didn't get to see that episode. I can't actually remember what the last episode was that I saw of The Walking Dead. I wish I could tell you to give you guys a point of reference. But this one takes place. So, like, I know who Jadis is because she was in the show early enough that I saw her. I know what she looks like, and I remember the plot with her. And the pilot episode here doesn't really do anything with Jadis. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure she showed up. There's no real reference to her, and they start building this thing as if they're trying to gaslight us into some sort of weird belief system about. Anyway, I know that there was an episode in Fear of the Walking Dead that referenced the CRM, and cool. And the actress who plays Jadis, Pollyanna McIntosh, is credited as having also been on World Beyond. So they've tried to tie the CRM thing in for a while now as being this big bad of all big bads, you know. It's a show hopping big bad. Um, but the problem is that when you introduce it into the world that's already grown to the way it is, it raises a lot of questions. One, the fuck, is the first question I have because We have all of these cities and civilizations, and you're telling me that there's a massive city of hundreds of thousands of people with a full-scale army, and, like, they're just, like, letting these others, like, they're just like, "Ah, whatever." You know? It's just like, "Ah." I love when somebody when the one guy is like, the Frankie Quinones, who is fantastic, by the way, on This Fool. I'm so happy I recognized his voice immediately. I was like, "Oh my god, it's Frankie Quinones." I it's weird. He sounds exactly like he does on This Fool, even though he's trying to play dramatic instead of comedic. Same voice. Um, and he says something about like air conditioning. He's like, "Oh my god, they have air conditioning, man." I was like, "Man, Rick didn't care. Rick was in a functional city. He had Alexandria. They had power. Like they walked into their homes. They had like running water. You know, I mean, they took showers. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like that don't impress me much." So, yeah, it's a very weird thing. The CRM doesn't really seem to address the rest of the Walking Dead universe. There's a hint at Atlanta, and Rick is like, "I watched them napalm Atlanta." I was like, "Did we?" I remember them going into the facility, and what was it, Noah Emmerich? Is that the actor? Am I right? Did I get that? I think I got that right. I'm doing this off of memory. This is all I need to rewatch the whole show, but then I'd be rewatching as a blind person and certain details. Um, and they go in and he's got all these crazy ideas. He locks them in and he's like gonna blow some shit up basically, and be like, "This is the only way to stop things." And they figure out a way to break out because otherwise the show would have ended because all of the main characters were in that Walking Dead limited series. Um, I remember that, but I don't remember like somebody napalming Atlanta. They were leaving Atlanta and heading out after that. But yeah, was that is that the napalm of Atlanta that Rick watched? It's very weird because I don't really remember that what Rick is talking about. But he's feel like he's trying to gaslight me into this thing that happened. So question mark on that? Because I can't really go back and see and rewatch that. But what I remember is that. I remember that stuff where they got out and then they head out, and then season two is them on the road trying to get to wherever, and we pick up at the farm. You know, Carol's daughter gets lost, which is shocking since she's in like the entire comic book series. So everyone's like, "Ah, she'll be fine." So, yeah, lots of things that are different, and Michonne is sort of in this. I don't know, reference. She kind of comes in at the end, honestly, when they're like, this one's really all about Rick. They figure that you kind of know more about where Michonne is and less about where Rick has been. So the first episode is all Rick. Although I really needed Jadis, and I really needed Rick to recognize, like, what about Jadis? There's some stuff that's said to him where he doesn't turn around and just go, the the fuck you talking about? Like they keep telling him, they're like, "No one who's been here is ever allowed to leave." Then what the fuck is up with Jadis? Like what the she had a radio. She called in a helicopter. Like, what are you talking about? Paulina McIntosh has done interviews for the show, and she's talked about how her character is a CRM officer. She's a high-ranking CRM officer. So if this new Okafor guy is trying to recruit Rick to be Rick to be one of the new officers, why don't you just tell him that? Why don't you just be like, "Hey, dude, be on the level with him. Be like, yo, you remember how like Jadis used to live with the trash people, but then she also was a CRM officer and had a radio that she was able to call in for help when she needed it. That could be you. So you could go back to your people." Because why not? That's what Jadis did. You know, I mean, it's utterly absurd. It is so absurd. And this whole thing that they do with like A's and B's, and they're like, you're an A. Normally we kill A's. Okay, is Jadis an A? Because she led her own group. I really, it's just, it's so, there are things that are not happening in this show that are making me really dislike it. And on top of that, it doesn't have audio description. You have to realize, AMC has to realize that the people who are watching The Ones Who Live are not random people wandering off the street who need like exposition. We just need to be treated like we've been here the whole time, because those are the people. I talk to Walking Dead fans all the time. Um, there are three types of Walking Dead fans. Only three. Well, I guess there are ones that never saw the show because they hate TV, and so there's a fourth. But there are only three that actually watch the show. Here they are. I'll tell them to you. There's the one fan A. Fan A watched the show. Glenn died. They tapped out. Too much. It was too much for them, and they tapped out. Let's be honest. We all know a Walking Dead fan that tapped out when Negan came in, when Negan killed Glenn, even though that's exactly the same place he dies in the comic book. They tapped out. Fan 2 tapped out when Rick left the show. They didn't really care. They were like, I'm not really interested in seeing this without Rick. So basically for them, this is like the direct continuation. I mean, those people are definitely coming back. Like those people who survived Glenn and made it to Rick, they're coming back. And then you have the people who made it all the way through. You know, they made it to the end of the show because they're diehard fans every episode. And they're going to be here too because they want to, they love The Walking Dead like me. I'm here, I'm blind. The show doesn't even have fucking accessibility for me, and I still sat through the pilot episode and I'm talking about it. So there are three different types of Walking Dead fans out there. The other ones just aren't fans. The other ones are just people who casually walked into an episode or two and they're like, this isn't really for me. This isn't my thing. That's not a fan. That doesn't count. Those people, those people were not. But it's really, I don't know. What is zombies? I don't know. This is dumb. I like Succession. But I'll leave now. So yeah, and those people who they remember. You know, like we remember Jadis. I remember Jadis. She was in too many episodes to not remember her. I remember when she called herself Anne and she went over and she lived for a while in Alexandria after Simon murdered all of her people. And like, I don't need a recap on Jadis. She's not even featured this much in the first episode. And at all, actually, I don't even know. I didn't read a recap. I wanted to come into this with this is how confusing it is to be a blind Walking Dead fan. So no, I didn't read a recap of this show. I literally just accepted it. I feel like at the beginning there's a bunch of shots of something. Like it sounds like we got some walkers happening, and then Rick. It's probably like one of those like cool shots when you know you have like a character that the fans are waiting to see, and so you like don't show their face, but then you show some like cool shit happening, and then it like builds to the face. And then people are like, oh my God, it's Rick Grimes. So they can have that moment, except for we all know it's going to be Rick Grimes because that's why we're here. So it's kind of pointless. But yeah, I would have been way more like, oh my God, it's blank. If they had snuck another character into the show from the series history, you know, any other character. Like, could you imagine if like suddenly it just turned out like Tyrese was alive for some reason? I don't know. It's impossible, but if it was just Tyrese and you're like, what? Tyrese? No, it's Rick. It's the person who this is his spinoff. This is where he's been. This is the answer to all of the questions. So yeah, and then he's on like a chain gang, and I guess he cuts off his hand to try to. Is that to catch up with the fucking comic book because he didn't lose his hand in the series? Because they didn't take his hand. They kept playing around with the idea of taking his hand. There's that one scene when he's in the trailer and he's like looking at his hand, and like everybody was like, "Ooh, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna do it? Oh, is he gonna lose?" like they're playing homage to this hand that he hasn't lost yet because he loses his hand in the comic book series, and then I guess he just chops off his own hand in this. I that's what I got from this. Is he just decides, like, I don't need a hand anymore. It's probably had a cuff on it or something. Somebody was probably like, ah, he won't cut off his. Oh my god, he cut off his own hand so he can escape. Like, yeah. So I feel like that's forced. Um, it just doesn't feel like this whole thing with Rick. He's like, I gotta get back. I gotta get back. I gotta get. Rick is smarter than that. Rick would have played a game. This whole thing doesn't even feel like Rick anymore. It just feels. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, yeah, he's got. But the thing is, it's really hard for me to get on board with your version of Rick when you won't address Jadis things, and also you've got Rick writing letters to Judith, and he has not mentioned Carl once in anything. He hasn't mentioned the fact that he misses Carl, that Carl ever existed, that he had a son. Listen, I am so happy that he's an adoptive father and that he has taken Judith into under his wing as his own baby, as every adoptive parent is. Carl was actually his son. Judith is the child of his wife and Shane. It is not his daughter. I think we forget that, which makes it even weirder when you think about Michonne raising Judith all those years, because she never even met those characters to be able to um, even have like a connection. Like when she comes into the picture, Judith is already born and a baby, and anyway, just lots of thoughts. I've some. I hope I've proved to you. Her nickname is Little Ass Kicker. Yeah, Daryl gives. We kind of stopped calling her that. Daryl kind of calls her that every once in a while, I guess. But anyway, so there's stuff here that needs to be answered. I'm excited about the cast. Terry O'Quinn, this is a great actor. Loved him ever since Lost. And we've got Leslie Ann Brandt, who was in Lucifer. So Lucifer fans, there's your shout out. Frankie Quinones, who I hope is still on This Fool. I hope that got picked up for a third season, because he's great on that. That's a funny show. It's on Hulu. Check it out. Yeah. So I guess maybe we'll get more cast members as the show continues forward. I just need more from Jadis. And I need them to explain things instead of treating me like I'm an idiot. It's bad enough that the show doesn't have audio description, but to just dodge the whole Jadis conversation for the first episode was very odd. It was very odd that Rick just acts like he just showed up here. He's like, I just woke up in a hospital bed. And do you know why you woke up in a hospital bed? Like, at all? It's because Jadis brought in the helicopter. And then they like you know, he's all shocked that Okafor like knows things about him. He's like, how do you know these things about me? you know. Well, I assume that, and Michonne, that's a weird name for it probably find somebody like that. It's like, dude, Jadis can tell you exactly where they are. Like, what is this game that you're playing? Like, what is happening in this show? So, I really need audio description, but I've needed audio description for a long time with The Walking Dead, and they've constantly told me to go fuck myself. So there's that. And B, this show makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Probably even if I had audio description, even if I could see, the show makes no sense because this show refuses to acknowledge that it's trying to gaslight Walking Dead fans into believing things did or did not happen, or that Rick has just gone completely stupid. In the years that we've missed him, he's just. The problem is that this isn't Rick as of the end of The Walking Dead. This is Rick after his capture. This is Rick in the time period that Walking Dead was still happening. This is where Rick has been. We're not fast forwarding to now. So We're trying to get there, but this is Rick starting off sort of at the beginning, and he's got to work 6 years to get inside the city. I don't know, it's dumb. Anyway, so I know they're trying not to do the same thing that they just did for the final seasons of The Walking Dead, where it's like, oh, really? It's a walled off city with a government all its own? Please do tell me more. Might this be called the Commonwealth? Oh, it's not the Commonwealth. It's just so common that it's like the Commonwealth. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. Will I keep watching it? Of course I will. I would watch pretty much anything. I'd watch a spinoff, pick whatever character survived, and if they suddenly announced a spinoff for that, I'd watch it. Oh, there's this princess spinoff. Cool, let's watch it. I'm on board. Um, yeah, I just that's part of being a fan. It's sort of like watching every Marvel movie. I just would watch every Walking Dead thing, whether I like it or not. But this is not the best. This is sort of like lower tier Marvel stuff. This is not the best. Although I will say, even though the writing for his character is awful, Andrew Lincoln is fire in this, and the guy playing Okafor is actually doing a really good job. I really enjoyed his performance. So acting is still on point, but there's a point where Andrew Lincoln, where Carl, not Carl, Rick is talking about Carl. Rick is talking about, you think I made it this far so that somebody else can make choices for me? I was like, yeah, that was a great scene. Um, and sadly, I know Andrew Lincoln is not going to get recognized ever again for this show. So with any awards, it's just the way it is. Anyway, my grade for this is unwatchable because it doesn't have audio description. It was going to be unwatchable from the beginning. Probably should have told you that. I was just going to rant about the show for a while and then call it a day. I would love for audio description to be on these shows. Unfortunately, AMC Plus just doesn't feel the need. I checked. It said there was the only one audio track for the show. Anyway, yeah. Remember when AMC Plus people used to be able to get advance access to Walking Dead content? That was like the big selling point for AMC Plus. Anyway, so that's it for me. Please subscribe so we can continue to bitch about the lack of audio description of The Walking Dead, and maybe one day, I don't know, maybe it'll happen. There was an entire character that happened that I basically never really got to understand any of their performance because their character didn't speak. When you really line up when I told you I started losing my vision and when that character was introduced, you can figure that out for yourself. And yet that's the representation that they hold up and hide behind as being, no, we're inclusive. Are you? Are you? Anyway, um, I'll probably actually keep reviewing this show. So, fun fact, I think I'm gonna do it because I've done it for the other shows. And yeah, as a Walking Dead fan, it's important for people to know what it's like for blind people to watch this show. So I'll see you guys next week.